Hello, nuts and nerds, and welcome back to A Squirrel Plays. Today we're going to be talking about a solo TTRPG called Cinderedge. That's right, another review, but hey, I warned you in the last video. Speaking of, I realized the past couple videos I did, I completely forgot to mention that none of them were paid or sponsored. They were my honest thoughts and opinions. And this one is no different. It's still just my own thoughts. No money has changed hands. I just need to remember to make that clear in all of my reviews. Now, with that out of the way, let's break this video down, and we're actually going to change it up just a smidgen. Part 1 will be about the author and the book, Part 2 will be a look at the setting and the mechanics, and then Part 3 will be my opinions and final thoughts. I would say grab your friends and hold on tight, but this is a review of a solo TTRPG, so I know you don't have any. Oh, got him. Wow, I feel good. All right, so who made this thing? Where did they come from? How did I get my hands on it? So many questions. Maybe, I don't know, you might not care about any of that and have already skipped to part 2. But in the odd chance you're still here, this game was made by Grant, yet another name I can't pronounce, and he reached out to me directly asking if I would review and share it around. Actually, the first email went who knows where, so had he not sent a follow-up email, I never would have known. Anyway, I wanted to know more, so I started asking some questions and doing my research. Turns out old Grant here actually has quite the track record. Not only does he work on his own TTRPG projects, but he runs a marketing business, and clearly he is good at his job because if you look at his previous Kickstarters, they have absolutely knocked it out of the park. Even the Kickstarter for this one is doing extremely well, which honestly I'm kind of surprised because I thought getting that kind of funding for a solo TTRPG of this style would be difficult. On top of that, him and his wife run a Plushie business, which is just the cherry on top, isn't it? I had never heard of him before, nor had I heard of any of these projects of his, which I'm kind of surprised because they are not small. But hey, if you're looking to get yourself marketed, he just might be the guy to talk to. I'll have a link to his website down below. Now, I actually have a physical book this time, as well as the PDF. My copy is a review copy, and I'll be totally honest, I'm not sure what all that entails and how much it will differ from the final product. But what I have is pretty darn solid. It's about the size of Easy D6's book, so it is a fairly small book and very easy to flip through, which you know I appreciate. Cinderedge uses D6s and a basic poker deck, but what I thought was really neat is that technically all you need is the book itself. And that's because in the back there's a couple pages of randomized numbers and cards. Just close your eyes and place your finger somewhere on the page and boom, that's your result. My only complaint about the physical book is that the gutter spacing could have used some more love. Some of the text really falls down into the gutter, and I found myself having to really stretch the book open to peer down in there and see what was written. Other than that, though, pretty good stuff. No complaints with the PDF either. Pretty standard stuff there, though there are no bookmarks. But hey, that might just be because it's still early, right? Right? Come on, Grant, I'm giving you a chance to add bookmarks. Don't let me down. All right, so what is the setting for Cinderedge? Depressing, that's the setting, and I love it. If you've ever read any of my work, that probably comes as no surprise. But more seriously, while the game didn't particularly immerse me into a whole new world, it absolutely delivered on atmosphere and feeling. Or as the cool kids of today say, the mood and vibe. As soon as you open the book, you're greeted with a quote from Hemingway about how the world breaks everyone. On the very next page, your goal is made clear with more names I can't pronounce. The Dosherial forests are ablaze, which are ancient elven trees that could burn for decades. You and several others are ward keepers stationed alone and across the wilderness. Your job is to maintain the ward and keep the fire from devouring everything that remains. Which probably just sounds like a firefighter in a fantasy setting until you realize the ward wants to eat your sanity. And if you're wondering how that works, well, what a great segue into the mechanics. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Cinderedge is what you call a journaling solo TTRPG, something that never really interested me, and I think that's mostly due to the fact that I spend a lot of my day writing anyway. So, does that mean this is barely a TTRPG and mostly just giving yourself an excuse to write in a journal through the lens of another person? I would say no, because 1, there are some game mechanics to deal with, and 2, you can completely skip the journaling part and still play the game, which is what Glee did when we tested this thing out, but I'll get more into that in just a bit. As mentioned earlier, you are a ward keeper. You have your HP, mind, and ward, and all of those start with a value of 12. Each turn in the game represents 1 whole week in the wilderness, and each turn you will lose 1 HP and 1 ward. In order to keep those numbers from hitting 0, you have 2 consumable resource pools. 1 is a physical inventory of things you can consume to restore 1d6 HP. It is entirely up to you how that works. A can of beans? Sure, 1d6 HP. The item you consume could also be a spear that you made to hurl at a deer and cook up later. The other consumable is your memories, and consuming one will restore 1d6 mind. And if you're thinking, wait just a minute, neither of those restore ward, and that's the one counting down alongside your HP. Astute observation, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, you can restore the algorithm ward by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Rumor has it sharing counts as double, so make sure you share the love. In order to keep the ward stat up, you can consume either 1d6 HP or 1d6 mind and transfer the rolled amount to the ward. Now, while your physical inventory for HP restoration is pretty cut and dry, the memories are what get a little weird. You are encouraged to sketch your memories out on paper, but using words is also acceptable. The idea is that as you consume your memories to restore your mind stat, you alter the sketch in some way. You can start erasing faces, add something that wasn't originally there, or whatever the case may be that you feel is appropriate. The point is, your memories are fading and getting messed up. How you portray that is entirely up to you. Now, if that's how your stats work and that's what you're essentially fighting against, what does the gameplay entail? Each week, or each turn, you draw a card from the deck. And in the book, you will find a unique prompt, often several prompts, as well as a piece of art for each individual card. These prompts are how you gain additional inventory items and memories, but also challenges that may or may not consume additional stat points. For example, the 2 of clubs gives you 3 whole memory points, with each weekly prompt guiding you along with what you're remembering. Whereas the 2 of spades gives you some mind points directly, as well as poses a question to you purely for narrative reasons. The 6 of hearts gives you a condition where you lose 1 mind every turn, makes you shuffle the deck, and gives you a challenge roll where a failure will consume HP and mind. You get the idea, and how you interpret and answer these prompts can change with each playthrough. You keep going through these prompts until one of your stats hits 0. When that happens, you make a note of which stat hit 0, then move on to the next chapter, putting all of your stats back at 12. There's 3 chapters to go through, each with their own conditions and prompts as well. And when you get to the end, well, that's kind of special. See, when it's over, you're supposed to send in your final message back to headquarters as your final report. And what I think is really neat is that there is a website you can send this off to, as well as read the messages from other players. And I promise Sketchy Squirrel here is not me. Now, per the manual, your final message is the canonical ending to Cinderedge. However, you can flip the page and see what type of ending you got based off the stats that reach 0, as well as some of the cards you drew along the way. And no, I'm not going to show you the endings. Okay, now for the big question. Did I like it? Was it enjoyable? Would I recommend it? Well, I don't have heaps of solo TTRPG experience, which is something I'd like to fix in the near future, and the journaling category of solo games was new to me, but yeah, it's a pretty darn neat little game. It doesn't take long to get through a full session if you're just rolling dice and burning through the prompts like we did. Obviously, if you take the time to write more, it's going to take longer. I thought I'd shake it up a bit this time, so I had Glee run through the game. I explained the instructions to her and then read the prompts to her as she drew the cards and rolled the dice. She had a lot of fun doodling out her memories in what were essentially caveman-style works of art. And I will say, even without her writing out the journal entries and instead just asking herself questions and making one-liners in response to the prompts, there was definitely a character forming in greater detail with each prompt as the game progressed. Now, that said, There is some confusion on my part with instructions on page 9. On one line, it says, unless the card says otherwise, place it back in the deck. Simple. A couple paragraphs later, it says, unless the card says otherwise, remove it from the deck after the final prompt. I'm wondering if that was supposed to mean that you remove the multi-prompt card from your hand and return it to the deck once you finish the final prompt, because as you play, you can have multiple cards going at the same time. Or at least I think so. I know my reading comprehension isn't the best, so y'all can let me know how you interpret this page here. You'll also see some things I didn't cover here, but hey, you'll just have to pick the game up yourself and see what that's all about. You can't see it, but I'm making finger guns. Pew, 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 pew. Also, as for the length of the game, it doesn't take long to play through a session, but if you want a longer game, the book says you can change all the 1d6 rolls to just a value of 1, which will roughly triple your game time, supposedly. So that's pretty cool. Circling back to the lore for a minute, you remember what I said about the burning forests? Well, there is a note here with more wonderful names I can't pronounce that says Cinderedge is officially set in a magical high fantasy world called Ansera during Cimorial's rise to power in the mid-17th century. And if that makes no sense to you whatsoever, it's because that setting comes from another game that he made called Mythcraft, which he just happened to send me a copy of. Yeah, boy, it's a big one. He also sent me a goodie basket from the store him and his wife run, so I got plushies, pins, and stickers. Was it a bribe? Maybe. I think for the sake of science and research, and just so we can be absolutely sure, more people should send me free stuff. But how it actually went down was we were emailing back and forth, and I made mention that I thought Mythcraft sounded a little familiar, so he said he'd throw it in with my copy of Cinderedge. Then Cinderedge showed up at my house with nothing else, so I asked, and he said it must have slipped his mind. I said it's all good, a PDF would be more than enough anyway. And he said, nah, I'm sending a goodie basket. And you know what? I'm not complaining. Now, getting back to it. The Kickstarter, unfortunately, will almost be over by the time this video goes out, but the good news is it was already 200% funded within the first couple days, I think, and when I was writing this script, it had already hit every single stretch goal. Like I said, this guy clearly knows how to make Kickstarter work. So the big question here is, does it get the Squirrel stamp of approval? Yep,